Today, I want to talk about living with a chronic disease. And I could imagine many of you, including me, imagine patients' life will be like this. Defined by thousands of needle stitches, thousands of hours in the waiting room, and thousands of hours of seeing a doctor. I think, no, not hours of seeing a doctor, it's more like minutes of seeing the doctor. But even though patients spend plenty of their lifetime in this setting, it's not what actually means to live with a disease. To live with a disease means to do everyday work, enjoy sports and free time activities, and being able to work. And I think when we think about helping people to live with a disease, this is the part we should actually focus on. And as there are so many diseases, I think we need to get a bit more precise here. What does it mean to live with chronic, which can also be called incurable inflammatory arthritis, coming from the Greek word arthron, meaning joint, and itis referring to inflammation again. Inflammatory arthritis describes a group of disease which is caused by an overactive immune system, a condition in which the body's immune system attacks its own healthy tissue. And you can imagine that this might get a bit uncomfortable. And as always, the smallest will be tackled first. In that case, the smallest of our joints in our hands and feet. By taking them their protection, the synovia, a specialized tissue surrounding, protect them, feeding and keeping our joints happy and healthy. Even though you have a chronic, or people have chronic disease, it doesn't mean that it's always there. There will be days where people can barely move their fingers, but there will be others where everything seems pretty normal. Unfortunately, this is something which is very hard to predict. Even though a lot of people put some effort in understanding the relapsing cause of the disease, it's just something we can't put a timer on. Luckily by now, there are plenty of medications which help to handle the disease and slow it down, to slow the disease progression down. But why and when it will start to get stronger again, it's just something we don't know. Or it's based on rather uncomfortable or subjective examinations like inflammatory blood biomarkers or physician assessments. So one of the most reliable tools to grade the degree of joint and tendon affection is based on ultrasonography. There the physician gets this nice picture in the middle, and then he directly sees the white part is our tendon, and the black little cloud above it, it's the inflammation. And based on this, he does a scoring. You see, this is also not so practical and rather time-consuming. So the most common tool that we use to assess disease activity and to know how the patient is doing in his daily life is by asking him simple questions. Questions like, are you able to cut meat? And now I would like to see the hands up if you actually cut meat during the last 24 hours. I didn't. Okay, I think we have 1% of non-vegetarian. And other questions are, for example, can you take a bath in a bathtub? And now I want to see your hands up if you're taking baths in a bathtub on a regular basis. Okay, a little bit more, but... And this is what our patients are answering to these questions. Okay, I think you see the problematic here. And for us it's even more problematic because if there's no answer, there's no score, and we just don't know how the patient is actually doing in his daily life. Still, we wanted to know how are nowadays tools, sorry, it's a bit, let's try it again, yeah, how nowadays tools are related with each other. So a higher score of inflammation and more difficult to cut meat, we would think about a positive correlation. But when we did our statistics, we rather found a negative one. So I asked myself, instead of asking these hypothetical questions in doing difficult examinations, why assessments aren't based on what we actually do in our daily life, meaning physical function, or in our case, hand function. with the opportunity just to stop at some point, zoom in and have a closer look. And even more important, to take an objective perspective on the patient's performance. And that's what we are aiming for. By taking the patient out of this rather uncomfortable setting and in the actual life. So when we are actually moving and being alive. And by doing this with sensor technology that's not invasive or even attached to the body. Let's see how far we can get with this. Thank you for your attention.